The alarm screamed inside the dropship as Danny Cole fought with the controls. Red lights flashed everywhere. Smoke filled the cabin, making it hard to breathe. Through the cracked window, he could see the planet below getting closer and closer. Too fast. Way too fast. Come on. Come on, Danny whispered to the dying ship. His hands moved across buttons and switches, trying everything he knew. But the ship was broken beyond repair. 3 Kreth missiles had torn through its hull just minutes ago. His crew, his friends, were already gone. He was the only one left. The dropship had been part of a simple survey mission. They were supposed to map the surface of Varus 7, a planet on the edge of known space. Nobody expected the Kreth warships to appear. Nobody expected the attack. One moment, they were taking readings of mountain ranges, and the next moment, fire and death filled the sky. Danny pulled hard on the emergency lever. The cockpit shook violently. Below him, the planet was a mix of dark mountains and thick clouds. The twin suns of this system barely gave any light through the heavy atmosphere. Everything looked gray and cold. The ship broke apart around him. Danny felt the wind hit his face as the cockpit tore away. He reached for the ejection handle and pulled it with all his strength. There was a loud bang, and then he was flying through the air, his seat rocketing away from the burning wreckage. His parachute opened with a hard jerk. Danny looked down and saw the dropship crash into a mountainside far below. A ball of orange fire rose up, and then there was nothing but black smoke. He floated down slowly through the cold air. His body hurt everywhere. His left leg felt wrong, a deep pain that told him something was broken. His helmet was cracked, and his suit had several tears. The survival computer on his wrist showed the temperature outside was dropping fast. A storm was coming. Danny landed on a rocky slope covered with strange black stones. The impact sent pain shooting through his leg, and he screamed. For a long moment, he just lay there, looking up at the dark sky. Snow began to fall, or something like snow. It was gray and felt oily on his skin. He had to move. The temperature was falling, and his suit was damaged. If he stayed here, he would freeze to death before morning. Danny pulled himself up and looked around. The landscape was harsh and unfriendly. Sharp rocks everywhere. No trees, no plants. Just endless mountains disappearing into the clouds. In the distance, he could see lightning flashing inside a massive storm front that was moving toward him. His radio was dead. His beacon might be working, but he could not be sure. Even if it was sending a signal, rescue would take days, maybe weeks. He needed shelter now. Danny started crawling. His broken leg dragged behind him, leaving a trail of blood on the gray rocks. Every movement was agony, but he kept going. He had survived the crash. He had survived the attack. He was not going to die on some empty mountainside. After what felt like hours, he saw it a cave entrance. It was large, maybe 30 feet wide and 20 feet tall. The opening was carved into the side of a massive cliff, and the stone around it was smooth and black like volcanic glass. It did not look natural. Something had made this place. Danny did not care. He did not have time to be careful. The storm was almost on top of him now, and the wind was cutting through his damaged suit like knives. He crawled toward the cave, pulling himself forward with his arms. The entrance was warm. Danny felt it immediately, a wave of heat coming from somewhere deep inside. After the freezing cold outside, it felt wonderful. He dragged himself further in, away from the wind and the gray snow. The cave was huge inside. His helmet lamp showed walls covered with strange patterns, lines and shapes that might have been writing or art. The floor was smooth, worn down by time or use. The air smelled strange, like metal and something sweet he could not name. Danny found a spot against the wall where the floor was flat. He collapsed there, breathing hard. His leg was swelling badly now, and he knew he needed to treat it. But his medical kit was limited, just some bandages, painkillers, and the nanites in his bloodstream that would slowly try to repair the damage. He took 2 painkillers and wrapped his leg as best he could. The nanites would need days to fix a fracture. He just had to stay alive long enough for them to work. The storm hit outside. Danny could hear it, a roaring sound like 1,000 trains. The wind screamed past the cave entrance, but inside, everything stayed calm and warm. Whatever heated this place, it was still working. Danny's eyes grew heavy. He had not slept in over 30 hours. The crash, the escape, the crawl to the cave, it had taken everything he had. He knew he should stay awake, should explore the cave, should check for dangers. But his body would not listen anymore. He closed his eyes and let the darkness take him. When Danny woke, he did not know how much time had passed. His helmet lamp had turned off to save power, and the cave was completely dark. But something had woken him. A sound. Soft, like stones clicking together. He reached up and turned his lamp back on. The light revealed something that made his heart stop. There was a creature in the cave with him. It was about 20 feet away, watching him with large eyes that reflected his light like mirrors. It was the size of a big dog, covered in scales that seemed to change color as he looked at them: purple, blue, black, and back again. It had 6 legs and a long tail, and there was a thin crest of skin running along its back. Danny's hand moved slowly toward his sidearm. The creature did not attack. It just watched him, its head tilted to one side like a curious puppy. Then it made a sound, a soft chirp, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Danny stopped reaching for his gun. Something about the sound made him pause. It did not seem threatening. It seemed young. He looked around the cave more carefully now. His light revealed what he had missed before. Broken shells. Dozens of them, scattered across the floor. Some were as big as basketballs. All of them were empty and cold. This was a nest. And the creature watching him was a baby. The only survivor of something terrible. Danny looked at the creature again. It chirped once more, softer this time. "Hey there," Danny said quietly. His voice was rough and dry. "I guess we're both having a really bad day." The creature tilted its head the other way, listening to sounds it could not understand. Danny did not know what to do. Every rule, every protocol told him to stay away from unknown alien life. But looking at this creature, alone in a cave full of dead siblings, he felt something unexpected. He felt sorry for it. Danny and the creature stared at each other for a long time. Neither moved. The only sound was the storm still raging outside the cave entrance. Danny kept his hand near his gun, but something stopped him from drawing it. The creature was not attacking. It was not even moving toward him. It just sat there, watching with those big reflective eyes. He looked more closely at the broken shells scattered around the cave. There must have been 40 or 50 of them. Each one was large enough to hold a creature like the one watching him. But they were all empty, and most of them looked wrong, cracked in bad ways. Dried out, dead for a long time. Something had gone wrong here. Some disaster had killed almost all of them before they could hatch. The surviving creature made another chirping sound. This time, Danny noticed how thin it looked. Its scales were beautiful, shifting between shades of purple and blue like oil on water. But underneath them, he could see ribs. The creature was starving. Danny thought about what to do. His training said to avoid contact. Unknown alien biology could mean unknown diseases. Unknown behaviors could mean unknown dangers. He should keep his distance, observe, and wait for rescue. But rescue might never come. And this creature was just a baby, alone and hungry. Danny reached slowly into his pack and pulled out a protein bar. It was designed for human nutrition, and he had no idea if it would be safe for an alien creature. But it was food, and food was what the creature needed. "Hey," Danny said softly, keeping his voice calm. "Are you hungry?" The creature's crest rose slightly, a reaction to his voice, maybe. It did not understand his words, but it seemed to understand that he was trying to communicate. Danny unwrapped the protein bar and held it out. The creature's eyes fixed on the food. Its nostrils, two small slits above its mouth, moved as it smelled the air. Very slowly, the creature began to approach. It moved carefully, stopping every few steps to watch Danny's reaction. He stayed still, keeping the protein bar extended. When the creature was close enough to touch, Danny could see more details. Its scales were incredibly fine, almost like feathers. Its 6 legs ended in small paws with soft pads, not claws. And its eyes, up close, were not simple mirrors. They had depth and complexity, with layers of color moving beneath the surface. The creature sniffed the protein bar. Then, very gently, it took a bite. Danny let go, and the creature backed away with its prize. It ate quickly, swallowing the protein bar in just a few bites. When it was done, it looked at Danny again. Then it did something that surprised him. It chirped happily and moved closer, sitting down just a few feet away from him. "Okay," Danny said. "I guess we're friends now." Over the next few hours, Danny learned more about his new companion. The creature was definitely young, a hatchling of some kind. It was curious about everything Danny did, watching closely whenever he moved or touched something. When he talked, it tilted its head and listened, even though it could not understand. Danny decided to call the creature Blue, because that was the color its scales turned most often when it was calm and relaxed. When Blue was nervous or alert, the scales shifted toward darker purple and black. When Blue was happy, like after eating, they brightened to almost silver. Blue was also smarter than Danny expected. When he pointed at his water bottle and then pretended to drink, Blue seemed to understand. When he pointed at the cave entrance and made a face of displeasure, Blue looked that direction and made a similar chirping sound of displeasure. They were communicating. Slowly, simply, but it was working. Danny examined his leg while Blue watched. The swelling was bad, and the pain was constant, but the nanites in his blood were doing their job. He could feel the tiny machines working inside him, knitting bone and repairing tissue. In a few days, he might be able to walk again. In a week, he might be fully healed. But he needed to survive that long first. His supplies were limited. He had 8 more protein bars, 2 water bottles, and his survival kit. The water was the biggest problem. He would run out in 3 days if he did not find more. Danny looked deeper into the cave. The warm air had to come from somewhere. Where there was heat, there might be water. Underground rivers, hot springs, something. "Blue," Danny said, and the creature looked at him immediately, already learning its name. "I need to explore." "Want to come?" Blue chirped and stood up, ready to follow. Danny crawled deeper into the cave, unable to walk on his broken leg. Blue walked beside him, sometimes ahead, sometimes behind, always staying close. The creature seemed to know the cave well. It avoided certain areas and led Danny around obstacles he could not see in the dim light. The cave system was bigger than Danny had imagined. It went deep into the mountain, branching into multiple tunnels. The walls were covered with more of those strange patterns, definitely writing of some kind, he decided now. This was not a natural cave. Someone had built this place, or at least modified it. After an hour of crawling, Danny found what he was looking for. A pool of clear water, fed by a small stream that came from somewhere deeper in the mountain. The water was warm, but not hot, and when Danny tested it with his suit sensors, it came back clean. Safe to drink. He filled his bottles and drank deeply. Blue drank beside him, lapping at the water with a thin tongue. "Good job, Blue," Danny said. "You knew this was here, didn't you?" Blue chirped in response. They returned to the main chamber and Danny set up a proper camp. He organized his supplies, checked his equipment, and made a bed of sorts from his emergency blanket. Blue watched everything he did with obvious fascination. When Danny finally lay down to sleep properly, Blue did something unexpected. The creature curled up right next to him, pressing its warm body against his side. At first, Danny tensed old instincts warning him about alien contact. But Blue just settled in, closed its eyes, and made a soft humming sound. The creature was seeking warmth, seeking comfort, seeking connection. Danny relaxed and put his hand on Blue's back. The scales were smooth and warm, almost like touching heated silk. "It's okay," Danny whispered. "We'll figure this out together." Blue hummed softly in response. What Danny could not know was that Blue was doing more than just sleeping beside him. Valorix hatchlings had abilities that even most adult Valorix did not fully understand. They could sense emotions, read surface thoughts, and form deep mental bonds with those who cared for them. Blue was not just accepting Danny's kindness. Blue was imprinting on him. Every gentle word, every shared meal, every moment of comfort was creating a connection that would last a lifetime. Blue was also learning. The hatchling's mind reached out while Danny slept, touching his dreams, reading his memories. Blue saw images of a blue-green world with vast oceans and green forests. Blue saw a young female who shared Danny's features, his sister Katie, smiling and waving. Blue felt Danny's love for his home, his family, his people, and Blue began to understand in a way that no other Valorix had ever understood what humans were. They were not just another species. They were not cold conquerors or violent hunters. They were warm, caring. They formed bonds not just with their own kind, but with anyone who needed them. Danny had no reason to help Blue. He was injured, alone, low on supplies. Helping an alien creature was a risk with no clear reward. But he had helped anyway, because it was the right thing to do. Blue pressed closer to Danny, feeling his heartbeat through his chest. This human was special, and Blue would never forget that. The days passed slowly in the cave. Danny counted them by the cycles of light and dark that filtered through the entrance, though the storms made it hard to tell day from night. On the third day, the storms finally stopped. On the fifth day, Danny could stand. On the seventh day, he could walk with only a small limp. Blue never left his side. They fell into a routine without planning it. Every morning, Danny would wake to find Blue already awake, watching him with those shifting, colorful eyes. They would go to the water pool together, drink, and then explore a little more of the cave system. In the afternoons, Danny would rest his leg while Blue hunted. The hatchling was surprisingly good at catching food. Small creatures lived in the deeper parts of the caves, pale things with too many legs that scurried through the darkness. Blue would disappear for an hour and return with 2 or 3 of them, always sharing the catch with Danny. At first, Danny was not sure about eating alien cave creatures, but his protein bars were running low, and hunger was a powerful motivator. He used his survival kit to cook the creatures over a small heat cell, and the meat turned out to be surprisingly good, like chicken, but sweeter. "Thank you, Blue," Danny said, every time the hatchling brought food. And every time, Blue chirped happily in response. Danny talked to Blue constantly, not because he expected the creature to understand, but because the silence of the cave was crushing. He talked about Earth and what it was like. He talked about growing up in Kansas, about the endless fields of wheat that turned gold in summer. He talked about his parents and how proud they had been when he joined the space program. Most of all, he talked about Katie. "She's 2 years younger than me," Danny said one evening, sitting by the warm pool with Blue curled up beside him. "We used to fight all the time when we were kids. Stupid stuff, you know. Who got the last piece of pie? Who had to do the dishes? But when I left for space, she cried. She made me promise to come back. Blue looked up at him, crest rising slightly. I always thought I'd see her again, Danny continued, his voice growing quiet. Now I'm stuck on this planet, millions of miles from home, and I don't know if anyone is even looking for me. Blue made a soft sound, not a chirp this time, but something lower and gentler, almost like a purr. The hatchling pressed closer to Danny, offering comfort in the only way it knew how. Danny smiled sadly and scratched Blue behind the crest. The scales there were softer, and Blue seemed to enjoy the touch. "You're a good listener," Danny said. "Better than most humans I know." What Danny did not realize was that Blue was doing much more than listening. The hatchling's telepathic abilities had been growing stronger every day. At first, Blue could only sense basic emotions: happiness, sadness, fear. But now, Blue could see images, memories, dreams. Blue knew what Katie looked like. Blue knew the smell of Kansas wheat fields, even though the hatchling had never seen wheat or fields. Blue knew the feeling of a warm summer day on Earth, the taste of homemade apple pie, the sound of laughter at a family dinner. Blue was absorbing everything Danny shared, building a picture of humanity from one man's memories. And what Blue saw was beautiful. Humans loved. They loved deeply and fiercely, not just their own families, but their friends, their communities, even strangers. Danny had risked his life for his crew. He still felt guilt that he had survived when they had not. He still mourned for people Blue had never met. Humans were also strange. They did things that made no logical sense. Danny talked about movie stories that were not real, but made humans feel strong emotions anyway. He talked about music, about how certain sounds could make humans cry or laugh or feel brave. He talked about holidays, when humans gathered together and gave each other gifts for no reason other than love. Blue found all of it fascinating. On the 9th day, something happened that changed everything. Danny was checking his emergency beacon for the 100th time when Blue suddenly froze. The hatchling's scales shifted rapidly: purple, black, almost white, back to purple. Blue's crest rose fully, and a low hissing sound came from the creature's throat. "Blue? What's wrong?" Danny reached for his sidearm. He had not had to use it yet, but he always kept it close. He scanned the cave entrance but saw nothing. Then he heard it. A high-pitched whine, growing louder. The sound of engines. Danny limped to the cave entrance and looked up at the sky. 3 shapes were moving through the clouds, sleek, angular ships with the distinctive markings of the crest. "Get back," Danny whispered, pulling Blue deeper into the cave. "They're looking for survivors from my ship. If they find us—" He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. The Kreth were not known for taking prisoners. The ships passed overhead slowly, their sensors scanning the mountainside. Danny pressed himself against the wall, holding Blue close, trying not to move or breathe. The seconds stretched into minutes. Finally, the ships moved on, disappearing into the clouds. Danny let out a breath he did not know he was holding. Blue's scales slowly returned to their normal blue-purple. "That was close," Danny said. "We need to be more careful. If they come back—" Blue chirped softly and pressed against Danny's leg. The hatchling was scared. Danny could see it in the rapid color changes. But Blue was also staying close to him, trusting him to keep them both safe. Danny felt a weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. It was not just his own survival anymore. He had someone else to protect now. "Don't worry," Danny said, reaching down to touch Blue's crest gently. "I won't let them hurt you. I promise." Blue looked up at him with those deep, complex eyes. And in that moment, something passed between them. A connection that went beyond words, beyond species, beyond understanding. Danny felt it like a warmth in his chest, like a door opening in his mind. He did not know it, but Blue had just completed the imprinting process. In Valaric's culture, This was the most sacred bond possible. Once formed, it could never be broken. Blue would follow Danny anywhere, protect him from anything, love him for as long as they both lived. And Danny, without knowing what he had done, had accepted that bond. He had become Blue's family. The days continued. Danny's leg healed completely. His beacon kept sending its signal into the void, hoping someone friendly would hear it. The Kreth ships came back twice more, but never found the cave. Danny started teaching Blue human words. Simple things at first: food, water, danger, safe. Blue could not speak them, but the hatchling learned to recognize them. When Danny said, "danger," Blue would go still and alert. When Danny said, "safe," Blue would relax. They developed their own language of gestures and sounds. A specific chirp meant, "I'm hungry." A low hum meant, "I'm happy." A rapid clicking meant, "Something's coming." Danny found himself laughing more than he had in months. Blue was curious about everything, getting into his supplies, trying to eat things that were not food, knocking over his carefully organized equipment. It was annoying, but it was also wonderful. It reminded Danny that he was not alone. One night, as they lay together by the warm pool, Danny spoke into the darkness. "You know what, Blue? When I get rescued, if I get rescued, I'm taking you with me. I don't care what the rules say. You're not staying here alone." Blue chirped softly and pressed closer. "I mean it," Danny continued. "You're my friend. Maybe my best friend right now. And I don't abandon my friends." Blue understood more than Danny knew. The hatchling had heard the thoughts behind the words, felt the genuine love in Danny's heart. Blue made a decision then. Whatever happened, wherever Danny went, Blue would follow. Not because of imprinting, not because of instinct, because Danny was worth following. The Kreth came 3 days later. Danny heard them first, the whine of engines cutting through the morning silence. He was outside the cave now, no longer hiding. Varys had told him not to worry. She had a plan. 5 Kreth ships descended through the clouds, their weapons armed and ready. They had finally traced Danny's beacon signal to this mountain. They expected to find one injured human, easy prey to finish off. They did not expect to find a Velorix queen. Varys rose from behind the mountain peak like a nightmare given form. Her wings spread wide, blocking out the twin suns. Her scale shifted to deep crimson, the color of rage. Danny had learned. The color of war. The Kreth ships tried to scatter. They were too slow. Varys breathed fire. Not ordinary fire, something hotter, brighter, more terrible. It was the concentrated fury of a mother who had lost 49 children to these creatures. It was 3,000 years of power unleashed in a single moment. 2 ships vanished instantly, turned to ash before they could even scream. A third tried to flee and was caught by Varys's claws, crushed like paper. The fourth managed to fire its weapons, but the energy beams splashed harmlessly against scales that had weathered the births and deaths of stars. Varys tore it apart with her teeth. The 5th ship ran. It was the command vessel, carrying the Kreth leader who had ordered the attack on the nest. Danny saw it climbing toward orbit, pushing its engines beyond their limits. Varys did not chase it. She did not need to. She closed her eyes and reached out with her mind across the void, touching the thoughts of every Kreth on that ship. Danny felt the edge of that mental contact and shuddered. She was not killing them. She was doing something worse. She was showing them what they had done, making them feel what she had felt when she found her dead children, making them experience every moment of her grief, her rage, her loss. The ship stopped climbing. It hung in the sky for a long moment. Then it turned and flew away, not toward Kreth space, but toward the nearest star. Danny watched until it disappeared into the light. He understood. The Kreth aboard had chosen death rather than live with what they had been shown. Varys landed beside Danny, her scales slowly shifting back to calmer colors. "It is done," she said in his mind. "Those crests will trouble no one again." Danny did not know what to say. It seemed violence before war was part of human history. But this was something else entirely. This was the power of a being who had existed before human memory began. Blue emerged from the cave and ran to Danny's side, chirping happily. The hatchling had felt what happened through the bond with her mother, but did not seem disturbed. For Valorix, this was simply justice. This was what happened to those who harmed family. Danny picked Blue up and held her close. The hatchling was getting bigger, too big to carry comfortably, really, but neither of them cared. "What happens now?" Danny asked. Varys looked toward the sky. "Your people are coming. I can sense their ships approaching. They received your beacon signal days ago." Danny's heart jumped. Rescue. After everything, someone had hurt him. "They will arrive by nightfall," Varys continued. "And they will find something they do not expect." She looked down at Danny and Blue, and her massive features seemed to soften. "They will find the beginning of something new." The rescue ship was called the Starbound. It descended through the clouds just as the twin suns were setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Danny watched it land, Blue still perched on his shoulder, Varys standing like a mountain behind them. Commander Lisa Grant was the first one out. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen a lot of strange things in 30 years of space travel. But she stopped dead when she saw the scene before her. A young lieutenant, supposedly lost and alone, standing calmly with an alien creature on his shoulder, and behind him, a dragon. An actual dragon, bigger than her ship, watching them with ancient, intelligent eyes. Lisa's hand went to her sidearm on instinct. A dozen soldiers poured out of the ship behind her, weapons raised. "Stand down!" Danny shouted, stepping forward with his hands raised. "Everyone stand down. They're not hostile." "Lieutenant Cole," Lisa said slowly, "would you mind explaining what in the hell is going on here?" Danny took a deep breath. Where did he even begin? "Commander, I'd like you to meet Blue," he said, gesturing to the creature on his shoulder. "And her mother, Varys. They're Valorix, and they just saved my life." The next few hours were tense. Danny explained everything: the crash, finding Blue, the bond that formed, the Queen's return, the destruction of the Creth Patrol. Lisa listened with an expression that shifted between disbelief, concern, and something that might have been wonder. Varys remained silent throughout, but Danny knew she was listening. More than listening, she was reading the minds of every human. Present, learning their language, their culture, their fears and hopes. When Danny finished, Lisa was quiet for a long moment. "This is above my pay grade," she finally said. "Way above. This needs to go to the admirals, the diplomats, probably the World Council." "I understand," Danny said. "But I need you to understand something too. Blue is coming with me. I don't care what anyone says. She's family now." Lisa looked at the hatchling on Danny's shoulder, at the way it pressed close to him, at the obvious trust between them. "Lieutenant, you know the regulations about alien life forms." "I know. I don't care." For a moment their eyes locked, young officer and veteran commander, the weight of rules and protocols hanging between them. Then Varys spoke. Her voice entered every mind at once, not painfully, but clearly, undeniably present. Every soldier, every officer, every crew member on the Starbound heard her words. "I am Valorix, Queen of the Valorix, ruler of 1,000 worlds before your kind learned to make fire. I have watched your species for centuries. I have seen your wars, your cruelty, your capacity for destruction." Lisa's soldiers shifted nervously, their weapons suddenly feeling very small. "But this human," Varys continued, "showed me something I have not seen in 3,000 years. Genuine kindness without expectation of reward. Care for a child not his own. Love given freely, asking nothing in return." Blue chirped softly, and Danny held her closer. In Velarik's culture, such acts are sacred. They are what separates true civilization from mere survival. Your Danny Cole passed the test he did not know he was taking. And in doing so, he has changed everything. Varys lowered her great head until her eye was level with Lisa's face. The commander stood her ground, though Danny could see her trembling. The Valoric's empire has watched and waited, wondering if humanity was worth knowing. Wondering if you were more than the violence and chaos we saw. This one human has answered that question. She straightened again, spreading her wings until they blotted out the sunset. When your enemies come, and they will come, you will not face them alone. The Valorix will remember what Danny Cole did in this cave. We will remember that a human, injured and dying, chose to feed a starving child instead of saving his rations for himself. We will remember that your species is capable of something precious. She looked at Danny one last time, and he felt a warmth in his mind gratitude. Respect, something almost like motherly love. My daughter chose wisely, and so did I. Varys launched herself into the sky, her wings beating once, twice, carrying her toward the stars. Danny watched until she was just a speck against the gathering darkness. Blue chirped on his shoulder, a sound of mixed sadness and happiness. She would miss her mother. But she had made her choice, and she did not regret it. Lisa Grant let out a breath she seemed to have been holding for an hour. "Well," she said slowly, "I guess you're keeping the alien, Lieutenant." Danny smiled, the first real smile he had worn in weeks. "Thank you, Commander. Don't thank me. Thank your new friend up there. I have a feeling she's going to change a lot more than the regulations." Lisa turned and began giving orders, organizing the return to the ship, arranging quarters for Danny and his unusual companion. But Danny stayed where he was for a moment longer, looking up at the sky. Blue nuzzled against his cheek, purring softly. "We did it, Blue," Danny whispered. "We survived. And somehow, we started something bigger than us." Blue chirped in agreement. As Danny finally turned to board the Starbound, he thought about everything that had happened. He had crashed on an alien world, expecting to die. Instead, he had found family. He had found friendship. He had found a connection that spanned species and cultures. And maybe, just maybe, he had helped start something that would change the galaxy. All because he had chosen to share a protein bar with a hungry baby in a dark cave. That was the thing about humans, Danny thought as the ship lifted off. They did not always make sense. They were not always strong or smart or powerful. But they cared. They cared about things that had nothing to do with survival or profit or gain. And sometimes, that caring changed everything. Blue settled into Danny's lap as the ship broke through the clouds, leaving Varys 7 behind. The stars stretched out before them, infinite and full of possibility. Somewhere out there, Varys was already spreading the word, telling other Valorix what had happened, sharing the story of a human who had shown kindness when he had every reason not to. The universe was about to learn something new about humanity. Not their weapons, not their ships, not their technology, their hearts. And that made all the difference. On the 12th day, the mountain shook. Danny was teaching Blue a new game, rolling a small stone back and forth between them when the first tremor hit. The ground moved beneath them, and dust fell from the ceiling. Blue's scales immediately shifted to dark purple, almost black. "Earthquake?" Danny said, looking around. But something felt wrong. The shaking was not random. It was rhythmic. Like footsteps. Very, very large footsteps. Blue suddenly made a sound Danny had never heard before, a high, keening cry that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside the hatchling. It was not fear exactly. It was recognition. "Blue? What's happening?" The answer came moments later. A shadow fell across the cave entrance, a shadow so large, it blocked out what little light came from outside. Danny looked up and felt his heart stop. Something massive was landing on the mountain. Something with wings that stretched wider than a building. Something with scales like armor and eyes that burned like stars. The Valorix Queen had returned. Danny grabbed Blue and pressed against the far wall of the cave, but he knew it was useless. There was nowhere to run. The creature outside was too big, too powerful, too everything. The Queen landed with a final impact that knocked Danny off his feet. He could see her now through the entrance, 60 feet of ancient, terrible beauty. Her scales were the same shifting colors as Blue's, but darker, deeper, like looking into the heart of a nebula. Her wings folded against her back like mountains made of flesh. Her head turned toward the cave, and her eyes found Danny immediately. Then she saw the broken shells. The psychic scream that followed was unlike anything Danny had ever experienced. It was not sound, it was pure emotion, pure grief, forced directly into his mind. He collapsed, blood dripping from his nose, his thoughts scattering like leaves in a hurricane. He saw images, flashes of memory that were not his own. Eggs being laid with love and hope. A mother leaving to hunt, promising to return. Coming back to find death and cold and silence. And now, worst of all, finding a human. An intruder. A possible killer. Danny tried to speak, tried to explain, but his mind would not work. The Queen's presence was overwhelming, crushing, like standing at the bottom of an ocean. Blue saved him. The hatchling jumped in front of Danny, spreading its small body between him and the cave entrance. Blue chirped and cried and made sounds Danny had never heard. A rapid, complex communication aimed at the massive creature outside. The Queen paused. Her burning eyes focused on Blue, and something changed in her expression. The pressure in Danny's mind lessened, just slightly. Blue continued to communicate. Danny could not understand the sounds, but he could feel something happening, a conversation beyond words. A sharing of memories and emotions. Blue was showing the Queen everything. The crash. Finding Danny injured and alone. The food sharing. The warmth at night. The protection from the Kreth. All the days of kindness and care and growing friendship. The Queen listened. And slowly her rage began to change. She approached the cave entrance, her massive body blocking everything. Her claws, each one longer than Danny's arm, carved the stone wider so she could fit her head inside. Danny found himself face to face with an eye the size of his entire body. The voice that entered his mind was like thunder, but controlled now. Deliberate. You are the one who cared for my daughter. It was not a question. She had seen Blue's memories. She knew. Danny swallowed hard and found his voice. Yes, I didn't. I didn't know what she was. I just saw a baby who needed help. You had nothing to gain. You were injured, dying. You gave your food to a creature you did not know. She was hungry, Danny said simply. I couldn't just let her starve. The Queen was silent for a long moment. Her eyes studied Danny with an intelligence that made him feel like a bug under a microscope. She was reading him. He realized not just his words, but his thoughts, his memories, his very soul. I have lived for 3,000 of your years, the Queen finally said. I have seen 100 species rise and fall. Most would have killed my daughter. Some would have eaten her. A few might have ignored her, leaving her to die. But you fed her, warmed her, protected her. Why? Danny thought about the question. He could give practical answers, that he wanted a companion, that he hoped Blue might help him survive, that it was logical to make allies in a hostile environment. But those answers were not true. Because it was the right thing to do, Danny said. Because I couldn't look at a baby, any baby, and not try to help. That's just how humans are. The Queen's eye blinked slowly. Danny felt something shift in the mental presence, surprise, perhaps, or wonder. Your species is young. Barely crawled out of your gravity well. We had star empires when your ancestors were still swimming in shallow seas. I have looked at humanity and seen violence, chaos, war. I expected nothing from you." Danny did not argue. He knew human history. He knew what they were capable of. "But this," the Queen continued, "this I did not expect. My daughter has bonded with you, imprinted. Do you understand what that means?" Danny shook his head slightly. "She has chosen you as family. In our culture, this is the most sacred bond. It cannot be forced. It cannot be faked. A hatchling only imprints on someone who has shown them genuine love." Blue chirped softly and pressed against Danny's leg. He reached down without thinking and touched the hatchling's crest gently. "I didn't know," Danny said. I cared about her. I still do." The Queen watched the interaction between her daughter and this small, fragile human. In 3,000 years, she had never seen anything like it. A human treating a Valorix with affection. A Valorix trusting a human completely. "You should know," the Queen said, "that the disaster in this cave was not natural. My enemies, those you call the Kreth, they found this place while I was hunting. They poisoned the thermal vents that kept the eggs warm. By the time I sensed the attack and returned, it was too late. All of my children were dead." Her voice carried ancient pain. "All except one. The one egg in a corner where the poison did not reach. The one daughter who hatched alone, with no one to care for her." Danny felt a chill run through him. The Kreth had done this. The same Kreth who had killed his crew, who were hunting him now. "I searched for survivors for days," the Queen continued. "I found nothing but death. I thought I had lost everything. And then I sensed my daughter's mind alive, healthy, bonded to something I did not recognize. I returned, expecting to find her captured by enemies. Instead, I found—" She paused, and Danny could have sworn he saw something like wonder in that enormous eye. "Instead, I found a human playing games with her, feeding her, making her laugh." Danny looked down at Blue, who was looking up at him with obvious affection. "She's special," Danny said. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," the Queen said firmly. "They would not. I have seen the universe human. I have seen what most species do to the young of their enemies. What you did was rare, precious, worthy." She pulled her head back slightly, and Danny saw more of her face, the full majesty of a creature older than human civilization. "I am called Valorix then, but you may call me Varys, as my daughter does in her mind when she thinks of this place where you saved her life." Danny blinked. "She named you after the planet?" "She named me after the place where she found family. That is what you have become, Danny Cole. Family." For the first time since the conversation began, Danny felt something other than fear. He felt hope. "What happens now?" he asked. Varys turned her great head toward the cave entrance, toward the sky beyond. "Now," she said, "we deal with the Kreth who killed my children and hunt my daughter's chosen one. They are still out there, searching. They will find this place eventually." Her voice carried a cold promise that made Danny's blood run cold. "And when they do, they will learn what happens to those who threaten my family.